Angwanani Malelepo Vukenjani Kleklas Vanave Africa. Welcome to Africa Good Morning. Tensions, protests and political maneuvers take center stage across the continent in today's headlines. In the DRC, a high-stakes negotiation between the government and M23 rebels is set for April 9, potentially altering the course of a bloody conflict, while convicted warlord Thomas Lubanga stirs fresh instability with a new rebel movement. Zimbabwe sees a crackdown on dissent as authorities arrest nearly 100 protesters challenging President Mnangagwa's rule, raising concerns about internal party rifts. Meanwhile, in Zambia, President Hichilema publicly scolds ministers for sleeping during cabinet meetings, linking it to indulgent lifestyles and lax governance. Plus, we get the Botswana Report from Rorisang Mogojwe. Stay tuned as Africa Good Morning unpacks these critical stories shaping the continent on DSTV 285, GOTV 25, 1up2.com and Network Media Hub on YouTube. Top stories shortly.
Welcome to Namibia, where adventure meets tranquility. With Enjoy, you have access to a wide range of accommodations to suit every traveler's taste and budget. Experience the finest dining and hospitality Namibia has to offer. Booking your dream accommodation is just a few clicks away with Enjoy. Join thousands of happy travelers who have trusted Enjoy for their Namibian getaway. Your gateway to unforgettable Namibian adventures. Visit us today at enjoy.my.
The Congolese government and Rwanda-backed M23 rebels plan to hold their first direct talks on April 9th in Doha, marking a potential breakthrough in efforts to end the prolonged conflict in eastern Congo, which has claimed thousands of lives and displaced hundreds of thousands. Now, this follows a surprise meeting between Congolese President Felix Tshisekedi and Rwandan President Paul Kagame in Doha on March 18, as well as separate discussions between Qatar and M23 representatives. The conflict, rooted in the aftermath of Rwanda's 1994 genocide and regional competition for mineral wealth, has intensified as M23 captured key cities, forcing Tshisekedi to reconsider his previous refusal to negotiate. While both parties have agreed not to publicly disclose the details of the discussions, a Congolese official stated that the talks will proceed unless the other side misbehaves. And an M23 source confirmed the date, indicating that the rebels will present their demands to Kinshasa. Previous negotiations scheduled in Luanda were cancelled last minute after M23 withdrew following European Union sanctions against them, adding uncertainty to the upcoming meeting. Now, convicted war criminal Thomas Lubanga has announced the formation of a new rebel movement, the Convention for the Popular Revolution, in the Democratic Republic of Congo's Ituri province, further escalating instability in a region already plagued by conflict. Lubanga, who was sentenced to 14 years in prison by the International Criminal Court for recruiting child soldiers and released in 2020, previously led the Union of Congolese Patriots in the early 2000s. Now based in Uganda, he claims that the CPR is both a political and armed movement, though it has not yet launched military operations, and calls for an immediate change of government to bring peace to the region. The announcement comes as Congolese forces struggle against the advancing Rwanda-backed M23 rebels in North and South Kivu, raising concerns that the country may face an even deeper crisis. However, it remains unclear how much military power Lubanga's new movement commands. Zimbabwean police have arrested 95 protesters on charges of inciting public violence following demonstrations calling for President Emmerson Mnangagwa's resignation. Authorities claim the individuals were identified through social media and at the protest sites in Harare, though turnout remained low due to heavy security presence. The demonstrations were organized by ZANU-PF veteran Blessed Geza, who opposes efforts to extend Mnangagwa's presidency beyond his current term, set to end in 2028. Geza supports Vice President Constantine Chiwenga as a successor, but the government denies any rift between the two leaders. Despite the small protest turnout, political analysts argue that the widespread business closures and empty streets symbolized a powerful political statement. Police used tear gas to disperse crowds and removed barricades left by demonstrators, while church leaders called for calm to prevent further unrest. The controversy stems from reports that Mnangagwa's allies are pushing for a 2-year extension of his term to 2030, despite constitutional limits. Though the president recently assured the public he would step down in 3 years, skepticism remains high, fueling tensions within the ruling party. Zambian President Hakainde Hichilema has warned ministers against dozing off during meetings, attributing it to indulgence and a lack of self-control. Speaking at a swearing-in ceremony, he criticized ministers for excessive partying, which he said risks exposing state secrets and delaying public service delivery. Hichilema, who has dismissed officials over poor performance, said he had repeatedly warned ministers privately, but was now addressing the issue publicly. He also cautioned against sharing confidential state information on social media. With elections approaching next year, Hichilema is expected to seek a second term, potentially facing strong competition from former President Edgar Lungu, who is attempting a political comeback despite being barred from running. Those have been our top stories on Africa Good Morning. We're going to take a quick break before Rorisang Mogojwe joins us with the Botswana Report.
My teacher once said, there are no straight lines in nature. And to this day I feel like, wanna bet? My quest for straight lines has become an unexpected adventure, navigating uncharted territories with a sense of wonder. Even though finding a straight line is nearly impossible, embrace the challenge. Choose your destination and conquer with the new JQ J7, born from the wild.
It's time for us to talk to Rorisang Mogojwe as she brings us the Botswana Report. Rorisang, it's good to have you on Africa. Good morning, Dumela.
Dumela Ashwin, thank you very much for having me this morning. It's always a pleasure to be right here on Africa. Good morning.
Africa, good morning indeed. Let's get straight into your current affairs. Botswana is facing severe power shortages due to internal generation failures, rising electricity costs, and financial instability at Botswana Power Corporation. Could you tell us more?
Yes, Ashwin, that is correct. Botswana is facing a severe power shortage, power crisis at the moment, where there is a shortage of electricity across the country, and this has led to load shedding across the country. Authorities are currently scrambling for solutions right now, but they did give reasons to say that it is due to internal generation failures, as well as rising electricity costs across the region, and financial instability at the power utility, that is the Botswana Power Corporation. What's going on is that Morupulebi power plant, which was commissioned in 2012 and supposed to be augmenting power supply in the country. It has 4 units that are available, supposed to be providing electricity at 600 megawatts. However, 3 of those units are currently down. Only 1 is online, while the 3 are offline, which means only 105 megawatts are only available to, which means that there is a gap, there is a power crisis, there is a shortage of power or electricity across the country. Now, the Minister of Minerals and Energy, Bugolo Kenewendo, is blaming, the power shortage and the power crisis on the mismanagement of this particular plant, because there has been decades of failed infrastructure maintenance since it was commissioned in 2012. Now, the Botswana Power Corporation is saying that it has kickstarted the process of bringing those units back up. One of them was expected to be back online yesterday at just in the evening around 6 p.m. And one is expected to be back online by the 17th of this month of April. And, the Power Corporation is saying that by mid-June, the power situation should have stabilized. However, this has caused a lot, or rather widespread criticism for the government for, not being able to provide enough power supply within the country, especially as we move towards the winter season. So there are those concerns if the country actually has the capacity. And because of the financial instability at the Power Corporation, Botswana BPC, there is that concern that will the government actually manage to stabilize the financials of the Power Corporation. And because of that, also the government is actually requesting the Botswana Energy Regulatory Authority to increase electricity tariffs, which actually goes against the current UDC government's plan, or rather election promise, that there will be reduced power and water tariffs. But currently the government is saying that they need to increase electricity tariffs because it is so expensive right now to keep the power on. And it is something that, of course, members of the public are highly criticizing. But we do hope the power situation will eventually stabilize, because there is a power schedule out there. However, it seems like it is not being kept to. But yes, that is the current situation in the country. I don't want to say we are in the dark completely, because there is pockets of electricity here and there. But, at any time it just, goes off, even though there is actually a schedule. They call it load management. So we expect the load management to ease by mid-June.
We certainly hope that situation can improve, Rorisang. Now moving on, some early drama. Minister of Justice and Correctional Services, Nelson Ramotwana, has distanced himself from a R1 million Pula furniture bill, claiming he was unaware of the expenditure until it was raised in Parliament. Like I said, drama.
Yeah, no, the new UDC-led government and its ministers are already in trouble. What is happening with that is that the Minister of Justice found himself in hot soup when somebody leaked a document from the ministry detailing a 1 million Pula government purchase order of furniture. That's 1 million worth of furniture for the minister. Now, the minister himself is distancing himself from this particular document, saying he was not aware of this document and he was not aware of any furniture that is being purchased. So obviously the question is that, how are you not aware of furniture that is being purchased for you? Are you not contributing it according to your taste, according to what it is that you want? But he's saying that he had no idea. And after he found out about this document, which was brought to his attention by his fellow minister in Parliament, who just kind of said, listen, here's a paper, what are you saying about it? Look at what's circulating on social media. He says he was shocked, and he immediately called his permanent secretary to cancel that government purchase order. And he did clarify that it was still at initial stages. It was still a process that had not been yet confirmed. However, of course, it has, drawn criticism about ministerial spending on lavish things already, especially in light of the economic crisis that the country is undergoing. Previously, the Minister for State President came out and actually admitted that ministerial allowances had been increased, but they had been done that by the previous government in September of 2024. So when they came in October of 2024, they found that, the bed had been laid, basically. So the allowances which had been increased or adjusted, came into effect. However, they are looking at reviewing these allowances, including furniture allowance, which is around 1.3 million pula for the 5-year term. So they are looking into reviewing that in order to come up with something that is cost effective and sort of reduce those ministerial allowances that have been increased. So currently the situation is that the minister has been criticized for 1 million for spending, or rather according to the document, 1 million pula on furniture. However, the government did say that they are looking into the situation and they will reduce, or rather consider reducing the allowances that ministers currently have, as per the Green Book, which is a legal document really that governs ministerial allowances and benefits.
Very interesting. Let's move over to a lighter note, a lighter jazz note. The Botswana Society for Jazz Education is set to host a grand celebration of International Jazz Day on April 30, highlighting jazz as a unifying force and a platform for intellectual dialogue.
Jazz. That is right, Ashwin. The Botswana Society for Jazz Education is a group that will be celebrating International Jazz Day, which is being commemorated across the world on the 30th of April every single year. Now, according to organizers, this year's concert promises to be extraordinary. There will be lots and lots of activities, including the main event, which is a concert featuring top-notch performances, including local as well as some from the region, from across Africa, really. The lineup includes local legends like Sokamurwa Komo, Joseph Saxon Friends from Uganda, as well as Grow to Black Collective, and many, many more. They will kickstart on the 23rd of April with activities that include workshops, instrumental clinics, master classes, and jam sessions. International Jazz Day is really an international day that has been declared by UNESCO, that's the United Nations Educational, Scientific and Organization, in 2011, in order to highlight jazz and its diplomatic role of uniting people in all corners of the globe, and just celebrating the jazz music's influence on promoting peace as well as intercultural dialogue.
Let's get into the sports news from Botswana with Rorisang. The Botswana Rugby Union allocated 60,000 pula towards women's rugby development in the past year. Tell us more about this.
The Botswana Rugby Union has donated about 60,000 pula to the women's rugby development in the country, because it says that it sees that there has been progress made in women's rugby. Women's rugby has not always been popular, but it is currently experiencing some growth and development, and therefore the rugby union has donated this amount in order to spearhead and to expedite development and growth within women's rugby. Speaking at the annual general meeting, the union's president Farid Pando acknowledged the strides made, but also emphasized that there's more that really can be done. There's a lot more room for improvement. One of the things that he highlighted was that about 11 women were accredited in first aid training for rugby, though many have not remained active in their clubs post-training. And the key milestone was the introduction of rugby to the deaf community in the capital city, the second capital city of Botswana, that is Francistown. So this was an initiative driven by the Development Office of the Union to promote inclusivity as well as community engagement. The rugby union has really called for community engagement and for members of the community to come together in advancing rugby, especially women's rugby, because they have been heavily reliant on grants from the World Rugby and Rugby Africa, as well as the Botswana National Sports Commission, in order to sustain its programs as a union. And therefore, they're saying the community needs to come together in order to come and develop the women's rugby. And therefore, they are spearheading this development. They are, taking charge. Hence, they donated 60,000 bula worth, of money into the sector.
Our economic news stems from Namibia, where Penda Itindi, chairperson of the Government Institutions Pension Fund Board, provided an overview of the fund's performance over the past year. Itindi highlighted that the GIPF's assets have grown significantly, now exceeding 167 billion Namibian dollars.
The latest account of GDP is per national accounts and as per the budget books that the finance minister tabled, because Edwin made reference to the budget. That's not a mean fiat. It would actually say that if you compare, or what GIPF could account for, if we are to look, the country is not for sale, right? But if we are to look to say that how much do we own in relative wealth of the country, about 71% of GDP, that is GIPF. That contribution is split up, is made up of their various components. The lion's share is income from investments, invested in the listed space, investment in the unlisted space. It's made up of direct investments, which we used to do then, and it's made up of assets that are managed internally by Treasury. Those are assets that, Treasury instruments that we manage, plus also the Treasury bonds in which we invest in. Their contribution by statutory, by rules of the fund, do come from the employees, the pensionable salaries of employees, 7% of the pensionable salaries of employees that are members of the fund. It comes from 16% contribution that a member that is made by the participating.
Africa, good morning on the 2nd of April. Thank you very much for joining us. We just saw that economic news story from Namibia's GIPF. Rorisang Mogojwe took us through the latest stories stemming from Botswana, including the severe power shortages due to internal generation failures. But these were our top stories. Congo and M23 rebels plan to hold first direct talks on April 9. DRC convicted warlord Lubanga announces new rebel movement in Ituri province. Zimbabwe police arrest dozens in wake of protests. And Zambia president orders ministers to stop sleeping in cabinet. DSTV 285, GOTV 25, 1up2.com and Network Media Hub on YouTube is precisely where you can find us. From me, Ashwin Berry, and the Africa Good Morning team, Swera Zlaganaka.